One thing that I want to touch on, you mentioned, so we talk about control. So the builders do, that's why they benefit, right? You get an increase. It's not just, oh, I'm going to make more money, because I can do both, but I'm going to benefit in that the operations that I'm already doing will be more efficient, will be more cost friendly. Like you'll go further along. Now, from the other perspective of the consulting aspect, and what I think my group, myself, really, and like my background, the technology side and the process side, like I'm an operations type of guy. If I could do anything all day long, I'd be consulting with companies about software and and technology. I love that side of the business, and that's where I did, like, my guilty pleasure was when I was building my companies, putting time into that, right? My extra time at night, like if I was bored, I look up like how to implement some sort of software solution to help us scale or to help us take away some of the manual, repetitive human work that is so hard to manage, right, from a people perspective.
Right.
And then how can I it just so ended up that as we were working together, I could just walk through the business and say, okay, there's probably a better way to do this. So the second thing that we changed was, how are we actually following up with leads? Like, how are we using technology? Everybody says it, it's buzzword, technology, database, whatever, like blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean anything if you can't do anything with it. But how do you actually execute on something and like make a difference that does, provide some sort of tangible benefit and make you grow? And we found, through my experience, that got you set up with a company called Verse, right? And we love Verse. I mean, use them a lot, back and forth. But even just that, right? The concept, I mean, there's companies out there. Verse is one of them that does a good job. We're not paid or sponsored by Verse, I wish, but I use them myself, and I believe in what they do because I saw how it worked for me.
Yeah, the morale in the office when we turned on Verse and we told agents they didn't have to do 10 days of painting anymore.
And
you just see the smiles on their face.
Like, thank God.
I mean, they were a little nervous at first,
right.
Like, wait a minute, is this gonna work?
Right.
But once we plugged into Verse in it,
right.
Like we had a 2 to 3%, maybe 4% conversion ratio out of all that calling. Verse bumped out all the way up to 17%.
Wow, that's insane. And I didn't even see that kind of increase in mine. That's a lot. Like, that's a big jump, right? And for background and Verse and kind of like what it is and how I landed there. So I came across this problem that we're kind of speaking about when I was running my insurance agency. So I came to Florida, Orlando, by myself and started an insurance agency from scratch, ground up. And it was like, I didn't know anyone. I had no friends, no family. I'm just here by myself. And it's just like, okay, I mean, I can explain later like how I got that. It was weird how it ended up happening, but it happened. And I'm now here like, okay, got to do something. So for the first 2 years of running the agency, from like the support and the things that I see online, and like you spend so much time like talking to people, researching, they always go back and say, okay, you have to get leads, you have to buy leads, you have to call the leads, you have to call them and call them 16 times, and you have to be the first to call, and you have to do 2 calls. A double tap is what they called it. So you double tap the lead and then wait a minute and then double tap them again and then wait an hour and then call them again, and then you get 100 calls by the end of the day, pretty much. And then the next day you do it, and the next day you do it, and the next day you do it, and the next day you do it. And I just, like, personally, I don't answer those calls. I just try not to, like, I mean, we're busy, like a lot of things going on. So like, I don't like that necessarily, but and then when I was operating, like I take a position in my company business that I don't want my people to do something that I wouldn't do.
Right.
That's just how it would go. Like, I wouldn't make them do something that I wouldn't do. I would be there with them, doing it with them. And that's something that I didn't want to do. Right. And I didn't think it was because like I didn't have the work ethic or, I just don't want to do, hard work, whatever it may be. I mean, we did it, we tried it. I just think that there was a better way. I mean, it's like right now it's 2022 or when we're talking, right? That we're going into 2023. There's gotta be some better way than just making a call center. And I didn't think it was a call center, but my employees that through the course of the business, going through 30 to 40 employees, trying the old method of buying the lead and calling, just kept quitting because they kept saying that I was running a call center. And I mean, I kind of was a little hurt by that because I was like, no, it's not a call center. Like, we're an insurance agency. It's not a call. I'm not a call center out of like, India or China. They don't have call centers in China. What am I saying? But India. I mean, I'm from India, so I can say it, right? I mean, it happens, right? Philippines, right? We're not. I tried, I tried everything, but we're not a call center, and we have to call leads that we buy. I mean, that's part of the business. That's what everybody says. Like, I'm not going to go against the grain, but you try it. And I remember just looking at the numbers. Like, I spent $500, $600, $1,000 on leads, and we got like 1, 2 closing from it. And well, insurance policies sold at the time. And it was like, well, I can coach them. I can try to give them the scripts. I can try to make them better, and I can try to follow this process. But it just wasn't in my heart, and I couldn't do it. And I thought there's got to be some better way, which led us to finding a solution like Verse, which actually really works differently. You didn't even call the leads. They will call if the person says, I want to call. But really was text message first. You have to have an opt-in, of course. Like, so where are you getting your leads? Like, you need to make sure you have an opt-in, and it has to be compliant. But if you can get that much, which is not that bad, we know how to do that.
Any real estate CRM.
Yeah, it'll already have it. Yeah.
So you're good.
Then we can communicate with that platform. And I found in the testing and the data, I'm very data oriented. I like to have numbers before I make decisions, or at least test before I make decisions. And I found personally, like, we were performing so much better when we went text message first. And I also, before I got Verse, what we did was in our CRM that we built, it was on Salesforce, completely custom. I had an SMS-based product in there, and so we programmed it like at day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7 to send out like a piece of content, right, relevant piece of content that could help this person. In our case, it was a preliminary quote. I call it content, but that's for the businesses it can change. But for us, it was a prelim estimate based on what information they submitted. And we texted it to them, and then just followed up lightly over the next course of, week, 2 weeks. All the way up for, I think I had to write the text and program it in and make sure it was working. So I went as far as like 4 weeks. And then it kind of got hard to manage. But what I found with the team, it was like, oh my God, the response rate was insane, like 50% response rate. A couple people being like, F you, don't ever text me again. Like, that'll happen. It's the leads, right? That's part of it. But my team, so we're a smaller team, like it was great. We had a big improvement, but we had a new problem. Right? So it was like, okay, we made progress. We're going to close more deals. We're closing more deals. The next problem that I had was like, all right, texting is like, even I struggle with this sometimes. It's like, if you're not replying at the moment that somebody texts you, it's like kind of a stagnant back and forth. Like I texted one lady for like 6 months, it felt like, to try to get her policy set up. And we would just like, I would get busy, she would get busy. It would be like, I would have people that I was working with, and I'd text her. She wouldn't reply till like the end of the day.
So she would text you, and then you would respond an hour later.
Yeah, like an hour later or whatever. And then she was busy, and then she would respond 2 hours later or a week later. Right. Can get far out. And it's like after 6 months, like we just haven't made any progress here. Because texting is like a low involvement type of thing. If you're communicating at the moment that somebody's free, like you have your phone, you're grabbing it, you're talking, like that's the best time. So like my team, they were on a call or binding a policy or something like that, but not able to get back to the people that are responding. And by the time they get back to them, because great, we had so many people responding, they were already distracted doing something else.
Right.
So it was like, oh, great, now that's a new problem. So how do we solve that? And then my research and just trying to figure this out led me to like, okay, what if we took the texting out of our control? Like I can't manage like a 24/7 team or like immediate response time. Because again, I'm like cracking a whip now. And I didn't want to run business micromanaging, like cracking whips on people saying, if you don't respond in 30 seconds, you're fired, that kind of thing. So apparently there are companies that do that kind of thing, and their sole product is faster response by text messaging and AI to help in that process, right? That was another buzzword, but again, better interactions, faster interactions to actually get the customers to convert to some extent by responding like almost immediately and having that human level to like have people ready that have some context, and then can get them to an initial pre-qualification stage, and then get you that setup deal that you can then, they're expecting a call from you or whatever it may be. For us, it was either calendar meetings or call, whatever execution we wanted. We were getting it to that stage. And that's where Verse took the communicating aspect away from us, freed us up to do our job, which was advise, talk through the policy, bind coverage, bind the policy and teach people coverage, instead of making them like call center employees. And again, like, it's hard to say, but like, I mean, some people were right. Like it kind of was like a call center. So our skill was not call centers. It was helping people with policies. That's why we're in the insurance business, right? Protecting people's assets, like their greatest asset. So Verse did the work on the scale side of things, allowed us to, I could just add as many leads as I wanted, right? Like it's just paid like a low cost per lead. I add as many as I want. And now we have these deals that are kind of like pre-qualified to an extent. You don't want to qualify too much over text, but enough to make sure that we're on the same page. Right. And then my team just calls them when they're ready, and they're expecting the call. Yeah. And that is what made the difference. And you speak to morale. So you did this, right?
Yep.
And I was like, hey man,
you told me.
I was like, I don't know, try it. Like just give it a shot, because you were hesitant because I was like, we're not gonna like call first. Try texting. My data showed it works better.
Yeah, and it did.
Yeah,
it worked a lot better. The agents were happier because now, they get a text message that they have a qualified lead, all day long. So they're going to jump right on that lead.
Right.
But that's the insurance side. There on the real estate side, it'll start to text out and it will kind of qualify. Mm-hmm. Just making sure that they want to spend over a certain budget, because you don't want to go show somebody a $20,000 house.
Yeah.
So I think we cut it off at about 100 or 150.
Yeah, not everybody's the right customer, right? So you got to,
Yeah, so it kind of filter out and make sure you're working with a person that's buying a house in the price range that you want to sell in.
Right.
That they had a couple other qualifying questions. We didn't get too far into it.
Yeah, you shouldn't like that.
And then we would ask them, if they had a lender or not, so we would know if we can push them to our lender.
Right.
On the team. But it would qualify. And another big thing is it would unqualify them.
Which people miss completely.
Yeah, so
you get that's almost the biggest thing too, is that the unqualified leads are sometimes more important than the qualified.
Yeah, because they can. Our CRM through Real Geeks has a pond, so a lot of this unqualified. I just asked that the team, the agents, they just kind of, the AI will give you notes.
Yeah.
Of what the conversation
perfect,
was. Right, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So I was like, just kind of glance through there and make sure that it should have been unqualified. Mm-hmm. And if it is, then they just release that lead right back to the pond. They don't even have to worry about it.
Right. Yep, exactly. And the unqualified leads, from my perspective, one of the things that we miss is let's say we buy 1,000 leads from Zillow. In my case, it was a company called EverQuote on the insurance. We buy 1,000 leads, and then out of the 1,000 leads, my team's goal is to call all 1,000 multiple times. So over the course of multiple weeks, we're going to try to call and communicate, right? Before we did Verse and that kind of thing. And it was to see, like, I spent money on every single lead. I need them worked, right? Yeah. You wouldn't go into it being like, okay, don't work certain leads or whatever. You try everything. But and those were the hardest leads because they're shared. So it goes to 4 different companies at the exact same time. So people hate their lives for 2 weeks because they're getting called like feverishly from everybody. And so they just get so angry. But you're calling for 2 weeks. How much time, the thing adds up. You get 1,000 leads. Sometimes we go 100 leads a day for a smaller team. So 100 leads a day. So that's like 100 leads that day. Then the next day is 200. Now you're at 200 leads and you're still calling the same frequency. So it just adds up. It becomes totally unmanageable because when some agent gets in the office.
Well, that first 100 leads on the first day.
Yeah.
You got 70 of them that you
it's
haven't
like
called.
Exponential, yeah.
Now you got another 100 leads plus the 70 you haven't talked to, and then that compounds every day.
No, it's like a quick way to get burnt out and fail. It's too much to manage. And then if you do, let's say that you're just a champ, you grind it out, you call these people. Ideally, you hear that there's people talk about all day long the stats that the longer you call, the diamond is at the 7th call, where everybody gives up on the 6th call, you get it on the 7th call. But across 1,000 people, how long did you spend, literally your time, how long did you spend and what's the cost of your time to call the leads like that, right? People miss, again, same concept, what you don't see.
And how many of those leads were contacted before you even were able to get to them?
Yeah, it's, and so if yours time, and time is the commodity that we, you don't get more of, right? It goes and it goes and it goes, and you have to choose how to make the best use of your time, and that's where we derive a value for our time. It's not spent in calling people as a professional. The reason why you got your license wasn't to call people all day long. It was to help somebody buy a home or sell a home, or to help give practical advice, guidance, right? To make money. I mean, we need a living, right? Let's not all ignore that we do work to make money, but you're not going to do that by just calling all day long. You got to do that by having people to work with all day long and doing your job. And so if you go through 1,000 leads and you find out 700 or 800 of them are fake, we're not interested, we're angry or whatever, well, you just wasted your time with 700 to 800 of those just maybe at week 2 you find out. And then it's just well, okay.
Verse would have just unqualified them all for you.
Yeah, and that gives you a cleaner pool of saying, well, now that instead of 1,000 to work through, and we know we need more leads. Top of the funnel has to be large, right? Because it's not like 1-to-1. Every lead we get, we close.
Right.
The more that you have in the top, the more opportunities at bats, the more swings you have, right? It's like you're getting pitched to baseball. I would rather have 1,000 pitches to try to hit a home run than 10 pitches.
For sure.
Right? Anybody would. So, in the baseball example, right? But in that case, so we know it's important, but how do you, it's like I can't personally, my arm would fall off if I tried to take 1,000 pitches in one session. Let me have somebody else work it, right? Let me do that and make sure that they're doing a good job, and give me only the ones that are like those lobs, like that we know, I know this is a home run ball, right? And I'd rather take 10 of the home run balls and hit a home run out of the 10 rather than trying my luck with 1,000. Yeah. Weird analogy on the spot, but I mean, I hope it kind of
right. And
drives a point.
And we were stagnant as a team with that 10 days of pain. That is, I hate to say it, it's just so outdated.
From you, man, I don't know. Like you're the the get it done guy.
Yeah, I was cracking a whip for sure.
Yeah,
I'm proud of those guys for staying because we
true. That's a good way to find like your gems in the team.
We ran them hard, but we plugged in Verse and it worked so well. Agents were so happy. Just get the qualified text. It would email them too, so every morning they get in their email, they can see all those qualified emails.
Yeah, we have to make it like impossible for them to miss it.
Yeah, so they're
let them know. Yeah,
it's exciting. You get something qualified, you're gonna look at that lead and call it.
Right.
But it wasn't but two months, I think, maybe a month and a half. We actually doubled the leads because Verse worked so well. Right. And now we can start scaling our leads
without needing. You don't need to hire more people. You don't need to hire an assistant. You don't need to go bring more agents.
The team stayed the exact same size.
Yep.
The exact same, and we doubled the lead spend.
Right.
Because you remember we're bringing in the lending monies. It's $18,000 a month.
Yep.
And with Verse working all the leads for the agents, there was no more 10 days of paying calling. They had all their time back to actually focus on the people that they were helping.
Right.
They could give tons of time to help people find a house. They built better relationships. Our referrals started increasing because of the time they're spending with them.
Right.
The sales, they didn't double the leads, but it increased.
Yeah,
significantly.
it never like will be 1-to-1, but
yeah, it increased significantly. It's getting to a point where you can just start going forever now, scale as big as you want.
Yeah, ideally, and with that will come other challenges. But I mean, the business is about just knocking down each challenge, right? Like I don't want to turn to motivational talk, but like it is like you get a new problem, and if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, like we're here because we like solving problems.